Hello, everyone. Welcome to those of you who are joining. It's absolutely fantastic to see that you have signed up for this fantastic webinar, this session at the SIDS4 conference that's happening right now in Antigua and Barbuda. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Stacey Alvarez de la Campa. I am the Partnerships Manager here at Island Innovation, and it's my pleasure to be presenting this session on the Blue Economy. Our session is entitled The Blue Economy, Building Blue Bridges, Charting a Course for Resiliency, with a focus on economic diversification and interregional collaboration. So we have a number of esteemed speakers from various regions, and we really look forward into diving in. Before we go any further, I'll let you all know that you're going to see a poll that's going to appear on your screen, and we would love to know what region you're connecting from, because that's the thing with islands. You know, this conference is focused on islands, but islands are all over the world, and we, despite our differences, we are held together and we can come together based on the common challenges and the common solutions we can face. So please feel free to vote and give us an idea of which region you're connecting from and what sector that you belong to, and also which industry you're part of. And we can get an idea of who you are in the audience. You can also feel free to introduce yourself and say hi in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. Any questions you'd like to pose, we would encourage you to use the Q&A function that is you can see that at the bottom of your screen, rather than the chat, because that way we can better curate any questions or comments you may have. But we will do our best to monitor both the Q&A and the chat. Okay, so the poll will be open for just a few more seconds. And that way we can know, as I said, which region you're connecting from and sector you belong to, as well as the industry you belong to. Okay, I'm going to check the chat at this point to see if anyone is getting in touch to say anything at the moment. And since this is webinar format, I realize that we mainly have the Q&A, so please feel free to just keep in touch and let us know where you're joining from on the poll. Okay, so at this point, I think we can have a look at the poll results. And as soon as they're on the screen, okay, so we have the vast majority of us joining from the Caribbean region, but that's closely followed by Europe. And then we also have North America and the African region there, and South and Central America. So that's fantastic. And the Asia Pacific region is also represented, so we're very glad to see that. The vast majority of us are from the private sector, but also NGOs are really making their presence felt at this conference, and we're happy to see academia is here as well. And we have the presence of government, so it's good to see the multi-stakeholder engagement. And in terms of industry as well, the vast majority of us are from the environmental services sector or ocean conservation, and we can see that this particular webinar is extremely relevant to that. Okay, so we're going to dive right in, and I use that pun on purpose because we're talking about the blue economy. And I'd just like to say a few words about the blue economy generally. We know as island people just how important the blue economy is. And the ocean is, you know, such a treasure chest of resources, opportunities, cultural affirmation as well for those of us who live in islands. And these all play a part in creating our cultural identity. The ocean is also a way that we can combat hunger and just kind of safeguard food security and unemployment. And the ocean is pivotal in terms of our economic success and our growth. So you can see that coming from islands, if the health of the ocean is threatened by anything, then that also threatens who we are and our culture and our very existence. So at this point, I would like to hand over to our first speaker. We have our keynote address, or some background context is going to be given by Mr. Miguel Galante. He is from the Camões Institute. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Miguel. Thanks so much, Miguel, for being here. And I'll hand over to you.
So, warm greetings from Lisbon, Portugal. And well, firstly, I would like to acknowledge Iceland Innovation for this partnership with Camões Institute to set up this useful discussion regarding the role of blue economy to promote the diversification of SIDS economies. And I must apologize the audience. Our Vice President, Ms. Ricardo Vitoria, was supposed to be here joining us at this virtual side event, but unfortunately, he has a very full agenda these days as our president is at Antigua. And by the way, James, I think our president will be Mrs. Ana Fernandes. Will be joining you tomorrow at the Irene side event. And so, I will address you the best I can on his behalf. And our perspective is to bring to the discussion a donor perspective on the blue economy and how development cooperation can support SIDS to promote blue economy. So, taking into consideration the title of this side event, Building Bridges, in this specific case, Blue Bridges, these have been the heart of the Portuguese development cooperation. Portugal is an Atlantic nation with a long relation with the ocean. And we have been leading discussions at the global level, supporting SIDS and also strengthening ocean governance and highlighting the importance of blue economy and the ocean for sustainable development. Portugal has been following with interest and supporting the new multidimensional vulnerability index, MVI, at the United Nations, with a view to improving countries' access to international finance, especially SIDS. And we are looking forward to keep working on this dossier with OECD. And regarding that, yesterday, Portugal co-organized with OECD a side event in Antigua to discuss a paper that was funded by us on using the new UN MVI to identify and fill in vulnerability financing gaps in SIDS. So, the Portuguese 2030 Development Cooperation Strategy has elected SIDS as a priority group and addresses particular emphasis to the ocean and blue economy with a holistic and integrated set of actions to promote governance and sustainable management of the ocean and its contribution to development. Also, 4 of our priority partners countries are SIDS: Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Islay, São Tomé and Príncipe in Africa, and also Timor-Leste in Southeast Asia. And from our experience with bilateral development projects, blue food security, including agriculture and biotechnology, is a relevant domain to address, as well as marine and coastal ecosystem restoration regarding ocean health. Social inclusion is another fundamental aspect to take into account. The integration of coastal communities in locally driven projects is key to achieve impactful results. For instance, the good results achieved in São Tomé and Príncipe on sustainable fisheries stocks management and in Nampula in northern Mozambique on marine and coastal ecosystem involving local communities showcases the importance to act locally and engage communities to promote sustainable development. On a different scope of blue economy, the Go Blue project, transforming coastal Kenya through sustainable development, from a collaboration between the European Union and the government of Kenya, on which Portugal is responsible to promote coastal Kenya tourism and cultural heritage. Actually, we have 16 small business receiving grants and being supported through technical mentorship, linking youth with business opportunities. I also would like this opportunity to stress the support provided to Cabo Verde and Angola on institutional capacity building. That is another important focus area for the Portuguese cooperation. Angola National Strategy for the Ocean was announced last year, and Cabo Verde's strategy is being prepared with the Portuguese technical assistance. Also in Cabo Verde, I must highlight the Cabo Verde Blue Economy Diagnostics, developed by OECD in 2022, funded by Portugal, which is another relevant approach from the Portuguese cooperation. This pioneer study identified several opportunities on emerging ocean-based industries such as aquaculture and marine renewable energies, and also on the green shipping sector, just to name a few. Blue finance was another key sector highlighted by the report, and the new Cabo Verde Blue Bond issued last year is a positive sign that blue economy really can make the difference in island nations. Before concluding, I also would like to bring to the discussion triangular cooperation. Triangular cooperation involves certain different partnerships between two or more developing countries, supported by a developed country or countries, or a multilateral organization to implement development cooperation programs and projects. So Portugal is a strong advocate of this innovative cooperation modality, and we are moving forward in this domain, signing new agreements with partner countries aiming for a broader scope of our intervention. So triangular cooperation has a strong dimension of countries' ownership and alignment with SIDS priorities in terms of resilience and vulnerability, access to finance and economic diversification, including the support of blue economy. Last year, OECD International Meeting on Triangular Cooperation took place in Lisbon, and they concluded that this innovative cooperation modality is relevant for SIDS, namely to address SDGs and environmental challenges. Also, a recent study by OECD on triangular cooperation in SIDS, co-funded by Portugal, concluded that triangular cooperation catalyze important financial and technical resources, leveraging contributions from all partners involved. So this cooperation modality really can foster green transition in SIDS and promote nature-based solutions. Accordingly to that study, most of the projects address environmental protection, namely to tackle climate change issues. Now, focusing on blue economy, this is a domain that is gaining traction in the development cooperation landscape. Portugal is fully engaged on OECD's work on the preparation of the guidance for development cooperation in support of a sustainable ocean economy. This work aims to promote the integration of blue economy in development cooperation among OECD donors members and will contribute to deepen this relevant domain in the Portuguese development cooperation. Before concluding, I would like to make a reference to the new UN Trade and Development SIDS strategy that was presented yesterday in Antigua. This framework can also contribute to support SIDS economic diversification, and Portugal was the first country to donate to the new fund that will support the implementation of this new agenda. And also to UNDP Climate Promise that is developing a study funded by Portugal on the approach developed by SIDS to loss and damage on their NDCs. And we hope this study will help SIDS to better prepare for the new generation of national determined contributions regarding the climate convention. So that being said, the most important thing now is really to listen to Mr. Didier Dogley setting the scene for a deep discussion with the panelists and the audience on how blue economy can contribute for the diversification of SIDS economies. So thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you all a good and fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miguel, for sharing that really valuable information about how the blue economy and how we can help each other in the realm of the blue economy. and the way that it can actually be a great foundation for collaboration within regions. So at this point, echoing Miguel's sentiments, I would love to introduce to the audience or keynote speaker or keynote address is from Mr. Didier Dogley. He is a sustainable development consultant, and he is the author of the co-author of a fantastic UNDP study on the SIDS blue economy. Didier, over to you, and we look forward to your presentation and your keynote address. Oh, Didier, you're muted. You're still muted. Can you just see if you can unmute?
Didier, would you mind unmuting yourself?
Okay, I've unmuted. Hi,
Great.
good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about these glitches. It is a pleasure for me to be part of this event this afternoon, and also to have been given the honor of giving the keynote address. In view that I have only 16 minutes, I would like to focus the time mostly on the presentation so that I don't overrun the time that I need to for others that are also presenting. Can you see my slide?
Yes, Didier, but it's not on full screen mode. If you could take care of that, please.
All right, sure. Okay, can you see it now in?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right, excellent. Let me see. All right, let's start from the very beginning. Okay, thank you very much. And so the reason why we work on this action brief, there was two of us. There was myself and Dr. Julian Roberts, who worked with UNDP as consultant during the period. It was 2021-22 that we work on this document, was that UNDP found that there was a gap as far as, having a blueprint or a document that SIDS can refer to and use for them to develop their blue economy. SIDS has been promoting the blue economy since 2012, when everybody was talking about green economy, and blue was saying, and the SIDS was saying, wait a minute, when we look at our countries, we see the ocean and a few dots in the, scattered around the ocean, and we don't see that much green. So for us, the ocean is definitely the area where we would like to put the emphasis on. And when we look at the blue economic sectors, it contributes to about 2.3 trillion US dollars per year in market goods, which means that it is significant and it is huge. And SIDS, when you look at the different SIDS countries, about 99% of their territory is mostly ocean or sea, and only 1% is land. And also, when you put all SIDS together, it's about 19.1% of the world exclusive economic zone, which is a massive level of blue natural capital. So the interest from SIDS in the blue economy has been there for many years now, and the interest is growing as time passes. But the problem is that there's still a lot of misunderstanding about the concept and how the blue economy can be leveraged to support sustainable development and also build wealth within the country. So that's why we worked on that action brief. So UNDP, when it looks, developed the definition, because there's definitely a lot of confusion about the different definitions which are out there. So they tried to put one for people to use. And basically, it is based on the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, jobs, and social inclusion, with the focus on preservation and restoration of health of ocean ecosystems. So basically, when we look at that definition, we see three dimensions. We see the economic part, we see the social, and we see the environment, which is very much linked to sustainable development. And when we break it down into two main components, we will find that, first of all, the need for protection and preservation of the ocean is very much at the forefront. And at the same time, it is about developing new opportunities to enhance the new economic activities, and sectors that exist. So what are these sectors, the blue sectors that we talk about? First of all, there are the mature ones, like fisheries that has been around for a long time, aquaculture, there's coastal and marine tourism, there's shipping, and then there's marine resources and manufacturing. Whereas the new sectors, which are emerging, because now with technology, there are new sectors that are developing. There's aquaculture, there is desalination, there's renewable energy, deep sea mining, but that one is still very controversial. There's marine technology and also renewable energy that is marine-based. And also the blue economy is very much linked to development, because the sustainable development goals are about development. And especially the goal 14, which is life below the sea. So there's very clear linkages with that, because when you are implementing the blue economy, you are also implementing goal 14. But there are also linkages to other sustainable development goals. And of course, there is the Samoa pathway, which is soon will be overtaken by the document that comes out of the fourth SIDS meeting or summit that we are having in Antigua and Barbuda this week. So what could the blue economy look like for SIDS? First of all, it is about recognizing the value of and invest in the natural blue capital. A lot of us do not take the blue capital, which is mangroves, coral reefs, and other seagrass beds and other ecosystems that exist in the marine environment. We tend to take it for granted, but the amount of goods and services that they provide to us, and also the opportunities that they create for fisheries and tourism and all these different blue sectors, is immense. So recognizing the value of those of the natural blue capital is of vital importance. Secondly, it's to maintain inclusive growth, fosters blue business, and promote jobs in blue sectors. So it is about creating wealth within the country by creating, new businesses and providing the environment for investment, emphasis on science, technology, digital tools, data, and innovation to drive sustainable growth, and also to make sure that there is that inclusivity and bring in the youth and also the ladies into that movement, so that they also can participate and also benefit from, these opportunities that are being created. Thirdly, there is the to promote energy from low or zero carbon sources. So we know that with the oceans that there are opportunities to create energy from the ocean. The technologies are being developed. They're not mature yet, but the opportunities are there, and it will help many countries, especially SIDS that spend so much money on importing fossil fuel for them to be able to develop and operate. Fourthly, it is about addressing resources scarcity and also circularity. Instead of wasting half of the fish that we catch, we need to think about, how do we maybe utilize 90% of it, by producing animal feed and, omega-3s and other products. So, and also fifthly, ensures resilience, to force the impacts of climate change. Climate change is that major crisis that is that is posing a major threat to all of us. So, but with the blue economy and by investing, in resilience building and adaptation and nature-based, solutions that through the blue economy, it will enhance our ability for us to combat against climate change. But at the same, and sixthly, it's about the human capital, which is centered to all of this. So we need to invest in the development of both at the level of, people going to university and all this academic development, but also providing skills for people who are at a vocational level so that everybody can benefit from the blue economy. So what are the main benefits of the blue economy? Before we get to that, let's look at how can we benefit from the blue economy? Which are the sectors that probably will grow faster within the coming years? First of all, we have the mature ones, which is ocean-related tourism and leisure sector. There's the ecotourism, there's the water hotels, health and wellness and virtual tourism and other forms of tourism, such as, liveaboards and yachting and that sort of thing. There's the blue biotechnology, pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals, biofuels, food, biorefining. That's a sector that might need a lot of investment in both technology, but also knowledge. The best way probably to do it is to build bridges and partnership with companies that can support the development of these sectors. Aquaculture is a low-hanging fruit. Instead of removing all the fish from the sea and catching the last fish, maybe we need to start farming them just like we farm animals on land. So there's major scope for development. And also, of course, energy from the sea, including putting solar panels in lagoons and that sort of thing. The main benefits that SIDS will probably get from the blue economy are from, first of all, by strengthening the protection and management of oceans ecosystem, the ocean will be able to provide us with the goods and services that they have done for so many years, probably during a longer period of time than if we were to destroy it through pollutions and other activities that are unsustainable. Secondly, it will assist in supporting investment in existing ocean-based economic sectors. These are the mature ones. So we will be able, by diversification, we'll be able to grow it further and also stimulate development of new blue economic sectors that I've mentioned before and diversify this. and bringing new players into, these sectors. Thirdly, it is about increasing the number of businesses operating and the number of people who can find jobs in those sectors, and also having inclusivity whereby young people and also girls and women can also participate in these sectors. And then it's about generating new knowledge and creating a better understanding of essential value of a healthy marine environment which support the blue economy. So part two, I was talking mainly of part one of the document, the action brief. It is basically broken down into 4 parts. So this is the second part. The second part looked at the threats that our ocean faces. Things like climate change and sea level rise, unstable and harmful fishing practices, pollution, marine invasive species, habitat modification, and all these anthropological activities that are detrimental to the sustainable use and management of the ocean space. So we know most of them, and the question is, what do we do about them? And then there are barriers to realizing the blue economy, such as inadequate ocean governance arrangement. This is still a major issue for most countries. Inadequate regulations and weak enforcement, when we have IUU fisheries, for example, limited knowledge of marine environment, lack of financial resources and sustainable use of marine resources, and limited capacities, which plague most of our countries. And then the solutions, of course, to addressing these threats and barriers mostly requires robust governance and policy frameworks that integrate, the 3 pillars or the 3 dimensions of sustainable development and also blue economy. And of course, some of the solutions can be applied and developed, at the national level, but others will have to be done at the regional level, because things like marine pollutions and land-based pollution cannot be addressed in one country alone. It will have to be addressed at the regional and international level. We also look at the economic governance, the blue economic governance which was a tool that was developed by the UNDP. So apart from having these dimensions and looking at, the different threats and
sorry to interrupt. We just have a few minutes remaining. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just so there is this governance wheels that was developed, and basically it is useful for you to be able to identify exactly who are the main players and who and how it is supposed to work. And basically what it tries to illustrate is that the blue economy is complex and that there are different dimensions to it, and that all this needs to be taken into considerations when you are considering the blue economy. The third part of the action brief looked at a step-by-step approach, which is basically how do you develop, for example, policies and strategies within a country and for the blue economy. So it provides the guidance for how do you do it properly. And then the fourth component looks at about, how do you align and harmonize the different sectors? Because when you look at the blue economy, it's not about one sector. It is multi-dimensional and cross-sectoral. So for you to be able to do that, so that you don't have conflicts between the different sectors, it is important for you to be able to harmonize your policies and strategies, and sometimes even your laws. And for you to be able to do that, you have to go through the process, strategically aligning your different policies and laws across whole spectrum of sectors. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thanks so much for that, Didier, and for emphasizing just how multi-sectoral and how multidimensional the blue economy is. And it's precisely because of this that it has potential to really boost economic resilience and development, and also development that we would hope is in a way inclusive across all SIDS across the globe. So at this point, I would love to introduce our CEO, Mr. James Elsmore, or CEO of Island Innovation. He will be steering the next section of the discussion, where we'll be having a panel discussion. So over to you, James. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for that introduction. And thank you so much, Mr. Dogley, for that fantastic presentation. It was a very important scene-setting exercise to go now into the panel discussion. We have 4 excellent speakers representing each of the key SIDS regions. We've really tried for this session to get an overview across the different regions. So I'll ask all of our panelists to turn on their cameras as I introduce them. And as it's a discussion, we'll keep everyone on screen together and really try and have some good discussion and back and forth. We'll welcome everyone from the audience to submit their own questions. So firstly, we have Mr. Lay Sek, Guinea-Bissau IBAP. He is a national expert on ecotourism. We have Dr. Shelley-Ann Cox, Chief Fisheries Officer from the Government of Barbados. We have Ms. Gwen Sisio, Ocean Advisor at the Permanent Mission of Palau to the United Nations, who's joining us live from the SIDS4 venue in Antigua and Barbuda. And we have Mr. Viliame Kasanawaka, Blue Economy Expert from Fiji. So we welcome all of our panelists to come on screen. We're just waiting for Mr. Sek, if you are there as well, to join us, and Ms. Shelley-Ann Cox, Dr. Shelley-Ann Cox, apologies, to appear. There we go. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all of you for being here. We'll ask each of you to do a short introductory presentation to give insights on the blue economy from your region, and then we will head out into the question and answers and discussion. So, Mr. Sek, if you are there. I don't see him. I think we've had some connection issues, so we'll come back to him. And if it's okay with you, Dr. Cox, we'll start with your initial presentation and an overview from a Bayesian perspective.
Well, a pleasant good morning to everyone and greetings from beautiful Barbados. Today is actually sunny after a few days of rain. So sending some sunshine your way.
Okay.
I think it's quite important to be in a forum like this, building blue bridges. And I see I have different colleagues from different parts of the blue economy. So I'll focus more on my passion, one of the mature sectors in the blue economy, fisheries. And as in my new role, in terms of trying to achieve a vision for a sector that might not have been held in high esteem before, but now with the new frame of blue economy and people realizing that sectors like fisheries are very important as we look at, I would say, adapting to all of the external factors like the climate crisis. And even seeing how the sector was still going during COVID, people have now realized the importance of the fishery sector. And it can't be viewed along the lines of agriculture and food systems only. It needs to be addressed in the blue economy framework. And in Barbados, from as early as 2018, when our government would have started the first Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, when fisheries was actually shifted from agriculture. And this brought to fore the beginning of a very comprehensive blue economy legislative framework overhaul. And as a result, we had different pieces of legislation being developed, but for fisheries sector was the Sustainable Fisheries Management and Development Suite of Laws, a very innovative set of legislation. It really outlines the strategic direction for a sector like fisheries, not only the traditional things in terms of licenses for vessels and fisheries workers, but we started to talk about things like corporate social responsibility. Inside there looks at fisheries and other sectors like energy, tourism, where we start to talk about, these intersectoral linkages that are very necessary for charting the course forward for blue economy development. So that suite in itself, and we have one part of the suite that looks at pre and harvest, and then a second set of the suite that looks at post-harvest. So very comprehensive. We even have a set of regulations that looks at fish with spawls. So I think our attorney was quite innovative with the delivery of the pieces of legislation. It was also supported by a lot of stakeholder consultation, and it was guided by our 2023 to 2033 Barbados Fisheries Policy. So now that we have set the scene for that in terms of our guiding documents, our guiding principles, our mantra to be transformative, inclusive, sustainable, now we look at delivering on some of the strategies that are articulated in those documents. And we have been on course and a trust for the provision of data-driven solutions, integrating digital technologies in our sector. One, because all of the fisheries divisions in the region are under-resourced, understaffed, and we need tools like the digital technologies to help us with data collection, data analysis, help us to, fulfill the requirements of international organizations that we have to report to, organizations like regional fisheries management organizations that give us, quotas for certain stocks that we are harvesting. And, for us to be able to work on creating this bespoke fisheries information system that would get us to that place where we can do a lot of automation of our reporting. And we're going through that process right now. And, working with very young, driven software developers to get the job done. We've been, doing data collection in field with tablets, using portals and software like Hobo Toolbox. A lot of our colleagues around the world are using that. Even for our vessel inspections, we have digitized that process. And we're working too on our fisheries services, to digitize that process. Hopefully, in a few months to a year, we can do payments online as well. And that's the direction where we're going, because if we want to raise the profile of a sector that has not been held in high esteem, I had a presentation because youth engagement is another emphasis that we have. And this student came up to me and told me that she didn't realize that fisheries was so high tech. And to get that kind of response, because children are genuine, and they come to you and they don't hide, they tell you things directly. And to hear that, to be able to demonstrate that a sector like this could be integrating a lot of things, and even if they want to be IT professionals or data scientists, that they could, do data science in blue economy. They don't have to stick to Silicon Valley and the development of apps. They could actually have, applications to real world problems and offer data-driven solutions. And then another thrust of ours is evidence-based decision making. And I think since last year, we've been very keen to have our Fisheries Advisory Committee established. This is a multi-stakeholder committee where we've been working with stakeholders around the value chain. We are, bringing in stakeholders for tourism, energy, and other things as needed. But this Fisheries Advisory Committee is a demonstration of building blue bridges. where partnerships are key for having that perspectives from different people to offer sound advice to the minister and the chief fisheries officer. So we've been meeting from November every month, and I think we've been having quite productive meetings. We're having some action on the ground as well, which is very key. And then finally, I want to, just end by saying the importance of women and youth engagement in small scale fisheries is key. And we worked on developing a documentary that featured two of our exceptional fisherwomen, the ones that actually take out the boats on their own. And that impact of that film, I believe it was also shown at the Jamaica Film Festival this weekend. That has created a lot of discussions around women now seeing themselves in these roles that they wouldn't have seen before, being able to, actually participate in the harvest component of fisheries. The post-harvest component in Barbados is dominated by women, the fish vendors, the fish cleaners. But we hardly have women owning boats, and we hardly have women captaining longline vessels and other things. So to show that nothing is beyond your reach and that this is, a career path.
Thank you.
That is quite feasible. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox, for those excellent insights. And I think especially important to bring in the analysis from both the gender and youth perspective. Barbados is obviously a leader in these sectors, so we're very happy to have you here to deliver those insights. And we will be coming back to you shortly with questions. We'll go now to our next speaker, joining from Guinea-Bissau. So Mr. Lasek, the national expert on ecotourism.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Guinea-Bissau is a country in the West Africa, which 26% of the national is a protected national area. We have an archipel, which 18 island, but this is a Bijagos Island, because this we have a lot of potential for development of the tourism. In Guinea-Bissau, the national economy strategy is begin implemented by UNDP and the partnership with the government of Guinea-Bissau. But the scope for this strategy is defined from 2023 to 2030. And this, we have 5 fundamental pillars. In these pillars, the tourism, we identify the tourism in the third pillars, who is we can identify this ecotourism for implementation the project in the protected marine areas. Next. The UNDP strategy developed 3 years program called the Resiliency Ecosystem for Structural Economic Transformation in Guinea-Bissau. This program, we have two principal results. This first result of the program is creation of innovation hub in Bissau, in center. And the second result is for the create the sustainable economic diversification for economic sector to improve the ecotourism and the sustainable fishing. the promotion of Guinea-Bissau ecotourism destination and the establish of favorable condition for the creation of the Blue Tourism Hub. The project will support institutions to promote communication and the visibility of the tourism in the country, and will help to strengthen the tourism sector through market assessment, infrastructure development, support for the micro entrepreneurship, and the business training and development. Amen. The UNDP will support the creation of the Blue Tourism Hub government, fundamental to developing a sustainable destination and the tourism development in Bubak. It's necessary to implicate and coordinate all the relevant stakeholders from the local administration, civil society, and the private sector to increase the collaboration, the participation, and the involvement of the island governance to promote the sustainable tourism plan. A Blue Tourism Incubator will be created within the framework of the Blue Tourism Hub to promote community-based ecotourism and foster family enterprises in the tourism sector, which tourism is the center and the entry point, different water pilot, and will be select create a governance key sector for circular economy, Saka Western management, food production, and microfinance. So the tourism market assessment, you make a roll the maples. It's missing some, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
In the tourism market assessment, we make some map, all the surplus in the island, and then you see all the product you can join to develop the tourism value chain. And then you see the other kind of the tourism alternative look like the bird watch and the CBT, community-based tourism, and the cruise. Now you have a cruise tourism too, and the silver tourism. And then you have a business development and the capacity building to link at this destination and the utility, the infrastructure upgrade, the eco-efficiency and circular economy. Next. The concept of living. Okay.
Mr. Sek, we have about 2 minutes left.
Okay, yeah, vote. So now we have the achievement. We have 10 youth people who went to the Casamance in Senegal to see what kind of the product you can develop together with the community, and to introduce this in the project, the Blue Economy. Many villagers are interested into the program. How many people are ready, innovation community-based? How many people would like to become community guide, service provider? How many will be evaluated and have the capacity to training in business models and the management for select activity to get in the, how many people will be evaluated and have the capacity to train it in the website and the social media development. So you try to concept to live in incubator, but this incubator, you have two kind of the incubator, the physical incubator, but is more cheap to implement this kind of the incubator. we chose the living in incubator because the people can, the youth people can go to the center in Bissau to make a training, and then they come back to the village to give this like a mentor. Next. So you make a roadmap from to the community to organize the CBD community basic tourism, and you show the model of the marketing and the training people to the website to can promote this work. Next. Yeah, this is the same. I talk about this ecotourism product and service development. This you join different kind of the offers we have in Iceland, and then you make a packet for you give this packet for promotion, and you work together with tour operators. Next. In the community-based tourism in Bubaki, we chose some process, and the update you can join in together to give the service and they promote the value chains and the responsible tourism sector.
Thank you, Mr. Sek.
Thank you to
a really great overview to be able to see
but
what's happening in
I know that.
Guinea-Bissau.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that, those insights, and we appreciate you sharing. So thank you for being
You
here.
have a slide now, you can share the information.
We absolutely will be sharing the recording and the slides to everyone who registered and participated. So next, our third speaker, as I mentioned, live from the venue on site at COP. Sorry, not COP. SIDS4 in Antigua and Barbuda. As we know, this is a virtual event connected to that. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Gwen Sisio, the Ocean Advisor at the Permanent Mission of Palau to the United Nations. Thank you so much for joining us on what I'm sure is a very busy day.
Thank you, and I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can.
Thank you. So I'm really glad I came in third because then, as we heard Dr. Cox speak about fisheries, Lasek speak to tourism, and Palau, my focus will be speaking on the environment and the protected conservation measures that we've taken. But it's not just about conservation, it's also about how do we balance conservation with local community needs, as well as ensuring that the environment is protected, but still serve the purpose and still support the local livelihoods. So just to have a quick overview, Palau has a cultural tradition of moratoriums called Bul. From that, we actually formally established it into the Protected Areas Network program in the early 2000s. And this program actually was focused more on environment, but we also realized that there are, and a lot of it was on the marine areas. And a lot of the protection was, there's different varying levels of protection because we realized that local communities still need to be able to live off the marine resources, seagrass areas that they need for their livelihoods as well as for their living. So the Protected Areas Network program really focused on that. But as we were developing it, we realized that fisheries, as well as the priority on fisheries and on tourism, and how do we integrate that into a system of protection that still balances all three priorities? So the Protected Areas program did focus on protection, but also took into account a different level where you can have full protection. You can have a lesser protection that focused on certain areas, but then allowed communities to have seasonal harvest, as well as tourism related or more education, more focused on education related purposes, but also there are some that are protected and have seasonal tourism in there. So it allows for that flexibility, still maintaining that, knowing that our our environment is our economy. This has been repeated quite a lot. Our environment is our economy, and our economy is our environment. So we can't really separate the two, that although we do protect the conservation, we also have to keep in mind that these resources, there has to be a purpose for this conservation, and it's to preserve these resources so that it is sustained and still provide the support for the livelihoods. So, and how we brought in tourism into that is, yes, tourism is integrated also into these conservation areas, but we created a sustainable finance mechanism that tourists pay into, that then provided support into the conservation areas. And that provided support for local communities as well to protect the resources, but also have an avenue for also conducting tourism within the protected areas that is managed. So it's a sustainable tourism within these conservation areas. But as islands, we know that everything that happens on land ends up in the marine waters and then beyond, including in our EEZ. So in our conservation, we extended it out to our EEZ. So we had a large marine area. But again, with a lot of the events that has happened in recent years, such as COVID, we knew that we also needed to build up our economy. And how do we do that? Is the ocean is a large asset that we have. So we needed to be able to build. So we created a Blue Prosperity Plan, which looks at marine spatially planning our EEZ to then manage the interest of, as mentioned by the previous speakers, about where do we put ocean energy, first of all, where is our conservation area within our EEZ to maintain, to ensure that we're protecting the most vulnerable and the most biodiverse resources. Where can we put the ocean economy, like the renewable energies, where can we put that? Where can tourism happen so that we're not putting tourism like sports fishing in an area that it is very vulnerable, is more of a habitat nursery area, but in an area that, so marine spatial planning to allow us to balance out all of that so that we can still reap the economic benefits and still maintain the protection. But as an island, as part of the Pacific region, we also then expanded that to look at the Unlocking Blue Prosperity, a Pacific Prosperity Plan, which basically looks at, again, preserving much of the marine resources, but still also balancing out the economic needs that we need, whether it's tourism and fisheries, which are two of the biggest marine blue economy areas that we support within the Pacific region. So I hope that's a very quick overview, but that's the perspective from Palau, is we want to have a blue economy, but we needed to do it in a sustainable manner that preserves, so that we can sustain these blue economies, all those different ones. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gwen, for that insight. And I think that's one of the key takeaways here, that the blue economy and the meaning of the blue economy can also vary between different island nations, different island regions, different focus depending on the local context. But as we know, Palau is also doing a lot of great work over the last few years in this sector. So our final speaker to give a short presentation before we go into the panel discussion is coming from Fiji, Mr. Viliame Kasanawaka. Viliame, if you want to put your slides in full screen. There we go. Take it away. Thank you.
Good morning, good evening, good night. I'm connecting from the South Pacific. So today, or this time, I'll sort of unpack this initiative of Keep the Ocean Blue, really looking at the opportunity cost of deep sea mining and compensation for ecosystem services, in particular for Pacific Island, small island development states, but also can be scalable and replicable into other islands. So really, I had it's good to be the last speaker. So most of the points have been covered in terms of the need to diversify in terms of economy, the challenges of energy in islands, and also in terms of the impact of COVID-19 and how we will rebuild and also look at the trajectory post this pandemic. We talked about green economy, blue economy, but really how this recovery, whether it's a blue recovery or green recovery, is yet to be seen, especially in terms of policies and in terms of recovery efforts. The initiative of Keep the Ocean Blue, this is the second time that I'm presenting it, is a sustainable funding method, looking at Pacific Small Island Development States, to look at really to address the issues or challenges of environmental integrity and planetary sustainability. I've put the paper in the chat so you can have time to go back and read. So one of the things the world must realize or must recognize that small island development states are living with the impacts of climate change now. And also we need to use whatever limited resources that we have to save our lives and our livelihoods. So there's a pictures, that's a map of the Pacific Small Islands development states. And it's great to see how we need to build bridges to look at diversification and also replicability and scalability of initiatives. Let me get to the next one. So, one of the things that we have talked about is in terms of the impacts of climate change. I looked at some of the case studies. 2016, Cyclone Winston impacted Fiji. That was a third of our GDP wiped out by one climatic event. Before that, there was also, climatic event in the region, such as Cyclone Pam and also Gita in Tonga. Pam was in Vanuatu. So looking at the case studies, and in this specifically looking at deep sea mining in terms of unlocking of the blue economy, there's a foot internationally and also in the region, in the Pacific, to move from merely, looking at exploration to look at exploitation. In the screen there, you have two of the case studies. One is that of in PNG and also Cook Islands. Here we are looking at Aotaki in Cook Islands. They are looking at nodule deposit, and also in Solawara in the PNG, which we actually looked at, one of the pilots. What I'm talking about is in the national jurisdiction. So because beyond the national jurisdiction, that's the ABBNJ that covers that. So there's a economic opportunity really for the islands to look at whatever little resources that they have to be able to build this resilient pathway. The science is not there yet in terms of deep sea mining. Of course, the various impacts and challenges, social, in terms of environmental and also the economic. So just looking at the case study, to drill down into the case study, Keep the Ocean Blue initiative. It's looking at a sustainable funding strategy to look at for those to look at that there's no to give the incentive to those countries who have this deposit to look at encouragement for them to keep it in the seabed, to be unmined. Of course, at the time also, if you look at it needs to go beyond the current marine protected area methodology, because if you look at the opportunity cost, Palau, Kiribati, they figured this out. That's why in terms of Kiribati, they had this protected area. So they closed it because of the fishing license that they were supposed to get, had no economic return. So really, they need to look at adequate and appropriate compensation if they are not to mine this because of the ecosystem services that they're providing not only for themselves, but for the entire planet. Going back to the blue economy, there's no definition or traditional definition in terms of in the Pacific for blue economy. But they are the custodians of the biggest ocean. When you look at the total cost and the total benefits and the net benefits, the benefit ratio, if you look at the case for Papua New Guinea and also Cook Islands in terms of seafloor massive sulfides and manganese nodules, it makes economic sense for them. This is the only opportunity that they have to be able to build up a resilient. But this, of course, in terms of the whole entire planet. So, so in terms of the opportunity there's two recommendations that the paper brings out to unlock finance through conservation efforts and also ensuring that there's appropriate compensation for keeping seabed minerals unmined. Also, there's an opportunity to look at, what are some of the, that came out really. How can we scale up other initiatives, not only in the region in the Pacific, but also that can be interregional, in terms of, I think earlier was terms of, there was tourism, there's also fisheries. So there's, a massive opportunity. Also to look at, how the development, not only of the regional policy, the international policy, to ensure there's due diligence done, and also to look at what is the initiative coming up in terms of the SIDS Center of Excellence and the data hub, how that can spur up, more knowledge transfer and also capacity building. I'll stop there so that we can have a lot more discussions in our panel. Thank you. Now.
Thank you so much, Viliame, for the overview from your perspective. I mean, not just a Fijian perspective, also a Pacific perspective as well. So thank you for bringing in that regional look. I'll invite all of our panelists to come back on screen, and also for our audience to go ahead and submit their questions in the Q&A box. It will be great to have some good audience interaction here, and we will be discussing some general comments from them. I think we had a very good overview from, as was mentioned, the different regions and also different parts of the blue economy. We know that the blue economy sometimes consists of so many different things that it can be quite difficult to cover. In many countries, these different areas are also quite siloed. You have fisheries and tourism are in very different parts of the government, very different parts of the economy. So that can be a challenge when it comes to addressing the blue economy, as was mentioned by some of the previous speakers. I'd like to start off on the financing side, and again, addressing these many very different parts of the blue economy can often be a challenge. But as we are here this week arranging this event around SIDS4, which is highlighting or will be announcing the development trajectory for all SIDS countries over the next 10 years, the blue economy is clearly going to be a key part of that. But the big question, as always, comes down to financing. So do any of our speakers, you can wave at me on the screen or put your hand up with the chat. Would anyone like to comment on some of the finance opportunities for SIDS countries and any innovative financing mechanisms that they'd like to expand on when it comes to the blue economy? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can start by saying that in Barbados, we are embarking on, well, it's in progress, the marine spatial planning process, which is being funded through the Barbados Environmental Sustainability Fund. This fund was established as a result of a Debt for Nature swap, and with the Nature Conservancy as well as the IDB. Other colleagues, Belize, Seychelles have attempted these Debt for Nature swaps already. So it is, that exchange and lessons learned in terms of that type of innovative financing mechanisms. We've been exploring other different types of financing mechanisms, be it, from funds, from not only grants, but corporate social responsibility, as I was speaking towards, that already fleshed out in our legislative work. and how those persons who are, private actors who are involved in the fishery sector could contribute to it. We do have some fish processors that have been offering a scholarship to students to pursue areas in marine biology, fisheries management for the past few years. So there are some examples already that exist, and a willingness for the private actors to support important initiatives, especially research-related initiatives. And for us as well, I should say too, the Barbados Environment Conservation Trust was the trust, of course, that is built on philanthropic funds from persons in Barbados, but the diaspora as well. They funded the installation of our first DigiFish pilot, which installed the solar-powered vessel monitoring units on 30 smaller vessels. So, there are examples on how these mechanisms, financing strategies can be implemented.
Could you very briefly comment on the diaspora funding? Was there a specific mechanism for that, or how was that organized? I think that's definitely of interest for many other SIDS.
Yeah, well, the Environment Conservation Trust themselves have their own governance structure, and it would be persons from away. There would be engagement. They've done lots of engagements in London and others to raise the awareness that a fund exists, that it was, only supporting environmental driven initiatives. And, they were encouraged to contribute. And then, on island, they had an initiative around restaurants, adding on, $1, $2 US to support initiatives. And this is also something useful that the Barbados Sea Turtle Project does as well, with hotels and restaurants around the island. Some restaurants here are, promoting sea to slate and farm to table types of initiatives, and donating some proceeds to initiatives that support that kind of, sustainability aspects.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much for that. Viliame, I see that your hand was raised, but Didier, did you have a comment also?
Contribute to the discussion of financing, because financing is a major enabler. Without the finance, not much get done. And for most SIDS, the biggest challenge is getting access to, affordable financing, concessionary loans and the likes. Because most SIDS are either, high income or middle income or higher middle income countries. And once you qualify as a middle income country, the probability of getting access to, concessionary financing is a big problem. So it's a national problem, and it's also cut across all SIDS. And as it has been mentioned by the previous speaker, there are two main instruments that are currently being pushed. There is the debt swap, which at least about 5 countries now have undertaken to raise financing to finance the blue economy, because a lot of it is about preserving the oceans and also financing activities within the marine space. There's the debt swap, and then there's the blue bond. And blue bond, it seems, has taken a new life, especially in the Pacific. I know that the Philippines and Indonesia, Seychelles was the first country that did a blue bond, a sovereign blue bond, but now it has taken a new life. It seems that there's a number of countries that are doing it now, and it has the potential to raise substantial amount of money to finance blue economy. And then there is the parametric insurance system that could also contribute to raising funds, especially for climate change. Whenever there is a a crisis or a major cyclone or, hurricane that has impacted an island and stuff like that. So I will stop here and allow the others to contribute.
Thank you, Didier, for that overview. Viliame, you have further comments on the financing angle, and then we'll move on to a different question. I can see a few more coming in through the chat.
Just not financing. There's finances out there, but we need to look at the formula to address the big challenges for SIDS is energy. So if you can look at productive energy, so if we can solve that issue of 1/3 of our GDP that has been taken up to look at fossil fuel, and then we decouple from fossil fuel to look at investment into health, education, building resilience, that is what really needs to be looked at. But the challenge for the SIDS4 is to look at the monitoring framework. That is the biggest challenge. So as much money we can talk about, but really it's how effectively we can utilize whatever money we have and push it in the right places. Thank you.
Thank you, Vili. Okay, so I see a few questions coming in. There was a specific fisheries question, but I'm not sure if Dr. Cox is still here. So maybe we can come back to that one unless you can come on screen, Shelly-Ann. We'll go to the next question from Jose Lopez in Cabo Verde, who's asking about blue economy governance. And he argues that it seems there is too much policy imposition on SIDS from international organizations outside when it comes to the blue economy. So he's asking, how can SIDS be leveraged to lead their own blue economy process that's driven internally within the country? And that's a very good question, Jose. Who would like to take a stab at that? It's a big one, I know. Didier?
I think at the end of the day, it's about sovereignty. Each country, has got the choice to take on whatever policy they would want to do. And at the end of the day, it's the vision of the government in power that makes the decision, as to where they want to take the country, because they have the mandate to take the decision. But whatever the country decides to do, if you want to have clarity, if you want investors to know what you're trying to do, and if you want to have, across the board within the country, be it the private sector, the civil society, and others, without having clear policies that drive investment, that informs, the budget, the national budget that government puts in place, and also the strategies, and also where government is going and how government is going to develop the country, then you will be in a mess. So it's not a question of taking policies from other organizations. It is basically having your own policy. If it is driven by other organizations and it's not driven by the government or by the country itself, then there is a loss of sovereignty. It's clear that that is a problem. But all policies should be driven by the government themselves.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any comments on this specific question? Not sure, Gwen or Lei, you would like to come in? Gwen?
Thank you. Sorry, it's so loud right now. So I hope you can still hear me.
The sound is perfect on this side. I'm not sure how, but the technology is working good.
All right, but it's the same point of Didier, what he said. Basically, it's the same here in Palau. The policies, it's really a balance of, yes, it is a good program. For example, we talked about the debt swap. We mentioned the debt swap and the blue bond. And while those are really good programs, they're just not feasible for Palau in its current the governance system that we have, as well as what our priorities are in terms of how we're going to develop our economy. It just doesn't meet, although it is a good program, we evaluated and see whether or not we were willing to take on the potential the workload that comes with that program, as well as whether or not we are capable of implementing that program. And it's the same for a lot of the bilaterals that we receive, as well as support from organizations. We have an assessment that we conduct to ensure whether or not we are willing to not only commit to the work, but if there are alternative outcomes that we can use that can still achieve the same, because at the end of the day, we need to ensure that we can sustain whatever work or whatever program that we incur. And then the policies are part of whether or not we make that choice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. There was a specific fisheries question that came up, and Shilian, maybe you can address that. And if you have any other comments on the previous question, you're welcome to drop those in as well. And it was a more specific question about the monitoring and setting of quotas, and specifically how that system can be monitored.
Yeah, so well, we in Barbados have a multi-species fishery, but for large pelagics like tunas and blue marlin, white marlin, those stocks that we share with other countries in the Atlantic, we would fall under the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, where there are very comprehensive stock assessments done every few years. And then, you know, there are special commissions every year where there's debates as it relates to, based on the stock assessment and, you know, the size of the countries, their historical landings and so on, how do you go about determining the quotas that each country would get? And that process is, you know, is based on the science, with some inputs of local and traditional knowledge as well. So that is a process, legal process as well. Barbados is a contracting party to ICAT since 2000. As it relates though to stocks in the Eastern Caribbean, we have to do a precautionary approach. We have not conducted any comprehensive stock assessments for flying fish, dolphin fish. And so we have not been able to actually set up quotas, because we still need to do a lot of science to determine what that is. So we've been implementing other policy measures, you know, size limits, some restrictions on certain fishing gear to be able to manage our fisheries resources effectively. And, you know, sometimes it means, you know, cutting back on licenses that we allow for certain fisheries and those things. But at the regional level, we've been exploring bringing a research vessel to the Caribbean to be able to do these fish stock assessments, because that will really support the evidence decision making. I want to join my colleagues though in the earlier discussion to say, even as it relates to fisheries and some of these international requirements, sometimes, as we say, it doesn't necessarily suit our local context. And, you know, when we think about some of the, you know, strategies and roadmaps that we would articulate for our country, you know, we can take some of the international guidelines, but we really have to customize and fit it if you want to make sure that initiatives on the ground are in fact impactful and successful. So, you know, sometimes small island states like ourselves, we have to, you know, take some of the guidance, but tweak it and tailor it to our context. And sometimes that means, you know, speaking up at you know, some of the large forums and letting persons know that, you know, for us, this thing is, you know, a livelihood. It's part of our national identity. It weaves the social fabric of communities. And for that reason, we have to make sure that it works well for us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I've had a rush of new questions coming in. We're unfortunately not going to be able to get to all of them. I'll just read out two of them, and then to wrap up, I'd ask each of our panelists for their parting thoughts in under a minute. So if you're welcome to comment on any of these other questions, because they're definitely things that we would like to address, and there's simply not enough time. So Mohammed had asked about continuity. This is broader than the blue economy, I think, but a general question about how projects, initiatives often are funded for several years, and then when governments change or funding runs out, there is a challenge with continuity in many SIDS countries. And there was also a question about blue carbon ecosystems and the financing of those there. So our speakers, I'm not sure why everyone's gone off screen. I was hoping that we'd hand to each of you for a quick final comment, actually. You're welcome to address those. So we'll go in the order of speaking quickly. So Didier.
Sorry, I did not catch exactly what you wanted us to say.
No problem. I wasn't clear, obviously. So just final parting thoughts.
Well, personally, I think the blue economy is the way to go for SIDS. There's no debate about that. You know, when we look at the opportunities that exist on land, which is the green economy, I think it's clear that's very limited. But the work that has been done so far clearly shows that, you know, there is major scope for the blue economy to drive, you know, the creation of wealth in SIDS. And I'm very happy to see that there is a young lady in Barbados who is the chief fisheries officer. I mean, I've never heard of that before, you know, because the fisheries is a very much a male, you know, profession. So it's good to see that, you know, inclusivity is there and that the blue economy is gaining in traction.
Thank you. Shelley-Ann, any final comments? Oh, we'll go. Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I had a call on the cell phone. I think this was, you know, a very rich discussion, and always good to hear experiences in other parts of the world. It's always, of course, never surprising to see that everybody's kind of dealing with the same issues and you know, really relying on gut and intuition and other things to make sure that our stakeholders are, in fact, you know, the blue justice, and the fact that those stakeholders who are in the blue economy, sometimes their voices aren't heard. So I would say it was definitely a great opportunity to be here this morning to benefit from the discussions. I think that, you know, some of us, we know the concept and we are quite motivated, but we still realize that a lot still needs to be done to really raise the awareness of the importance of the blue economy. And even in these forums, but as well as the urgent need to make sure that this gets on the syllabus in schools, so that we can really engage the youth to pursue blue careers and jobs, to make sure that the economy is sustained.
Thank you. Mr. Lasek? Sorry, you're muted. There we go.
Yeah, okay. So I listen all the participants. I see we have a nice potentiality. So you have a different experience, but I would like how you can before this meeting, how you can do some interchange between the different experience, because we have experience about ecotourism. The others have a service ecosystem work. You know, we need to join the force. I think this is my contribution from Guinea-Bissau. And we have a lot of projects, but we don't have a fundraising to finish, to implicate the water youth in the artisanal fisher clandestine project, other things. The women, you know, because in Guinea-Bissau we have a lot of problems about this kind of the blue economy. You can help the community. This is the problem now. So how you can give the benefits for those people from to the coast in the marine protected areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sek, for that insight. Ms. Gwen Sisio.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for calling this meeting. I guess from Palau's perspective is when we develop the blue economy, however, whether it's tourism, protection, conservation, fisheries, it's always with the purpose that it has to benefit the people in the country. Because if not, then we are developing a blue economy that will not provide for the country and for its people. So that always has to be the underlying reason why we develop our economy. And whether it's through projects or through bilaterals, so through means of which we are getting these, it always has to have a sustainability component, because at the end of the day, these projects are supposed to enable us to develop it. And then we have to develop that system in country to sustain that in the long run, so that it does not. And that is always the purpose in which we always try and do the work, and especially in developing blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gwen and Viliami.
Yeah, so the challenges are the same, so the solution should be shared. So we need to move beyond projects. It needs to be a pipeline of interventions, programmatic, so we don't have bubble projects. After we move out, it collapses. But I think that's what the opportunity for SID4 to look at for the next 10 years. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much to all of our speakers for their contributions. Definitely an informative discussion here. And it's, as was mentioned, great to see the shared challenges, but shared opportunities. And I think this is exactly what the SIDS4 conference is addressing. I will now hand back to my colleague, Stacey Alvarez, for some final parting words. Thank you again, speakers.
Thanks so much to all the speakers. This was such a rich and fruitful session. And, you know, we can see from this session that just the main concerns of the blue economy can be summarized, even though it's not easy to summarize them. But, you know, they run the gamut from being inclusive to improving the lives of all, harnessing renewable energy, to be based on a sustainable model of fisheries, to take action against illegal activities, of course, to create jobs and to reduce poverty and end hunger, but also to protect coastal communities from the impacts of climate change. So those are just a few things that our panelists, you know, tackled so well and in a way that was really inviting for us to want to learn more. I'll invite you all to take a look at the resources that were shared in the chat. Thanks so much to our speakers and our panelists for today. And before I go, I'd just like to mention Island Innovation does have a number of in-person side events happening at SIDS4 in Antigua, where I am currently based and having an amazing time. Coming up tomorrow, we do in fact have a side, later this afternoon, we actually have a side event to do with climate justice, amplifying the call for climate justice at the American University of Antigua. And tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to be joining our partners to look at the World Food Program. Financing on the Edge is the name of that particular side event. And on Thursday, we have two side events happening to round up. We have an event in the morning looking at unlocking sustainable futures in SIDS. And then in the afternoon, we'll be looking at facilitating innovation and capacity building. So please take a look. You can take a look at our website and sign up for some updates about those events. And for those of you who are physically present in Antigua, please keep in touch. We would love to welcome you. And on that note, thank you all so much. Yes, I see someone in the chat say climate justice. Yes, we'll be looking at climate justice later on in person. Thanks so much to our panelists. Thanks so much to our speakers. Really appreciate you all joining virtually. And with that, I will bid you all a good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And I hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.